Namaste, good morning everybody. Hello. So, as Jayaji last week started this beautiful series, which I think is a very natural step in our evolution as a city, you might say, as the work has been growing. Why? Because we come on the spiritual path. I often find it very interesting in the free moments to think how we all became friends because of a common interest. We were seeking something in life, maybe not sometimes very consciously, but we found somebody who was also on a similar tangent, and they said, "Oh, you should read this book. I know some people, I know a place, he's my friend, come and meet them. I'm going there." And then we come and we meet each other and we become friends, we get to know each other's name. So many things happen. And Master said that is because you're discovering. He said your spiritual family. Once somebody asked him, about his family, and he was in the US, as we all know. We are disciples, most of us over here. And Master said that, "Oh, back in India, they're my blood family." And he says, "You are the real family." And again, it may passingly go off like a statement from a very high-minded soul. But again, as disciples, like Dr. Lewis, his first disciple in America, asked him, "Sir, Master was speaking of the blessings that come to the family when somebody finds God." He said, generations on either side are spiritually evolved, they get upliftment, much grace comes into their life. And he said, "But sir, what about us, your disciples?" And Master said, "Oh, you come first." He said, "You are the real family." That's when perhaps he explained that. And again, even for a disciple of Master for many years, Dr. Lewis, it took him some time to realize, he was not left out of it. I'm sure. When he first met Master, there was a profound experience Master gave him. So the blessings were always there. But we can only push back the blame on God. He makes it so difficult that from Monday to Monday we forget. Like somebody told me, he said, "I come to the satsangs," and long-term member, Kriyaban, teacher. He says, "I come to the satsangs and I feel like there's a different universe at work in this temple." And he said, "I go back to my world, it's a different universe. People are thinking different things, they're acting in different way, they're coming, they're going." And he said, "It's like floating." And I said, "Well, it's true. I also actually try to tune into that once in a while." Master and Swamiji especially said, he said, "It's good once in a while to go into a foreign environment, of course, not a destructive one." Please come, doctor, said. And he would say that when you are there, he said, just calmly observe. And I do it sometimes over coffee. I just go with a friend to a cafe, coffee day and all, and we don't talk much. But I say, it's so interesting to see how busy people are, how their meetings are going, or how friends are rejoicing, or somebody's perhaps recovering from. So you just see those things, and gently you just try to see what they must be going through a little bit, and it's fun. But then, as Jayaji started, he said, this is particularly for disciples. And I was saying that why is it important after all these years? Because we never want to forget why we came on the path, especially those of us who have taken discipleship, Kriya, and have made it a daily practice. Swamiji, in one of his books, Hope for a Better World, he says, this world is so old. Who knows how many times we've come here, who all lived here, what's happening is so much. He says, too much. He said, but remember one thing, when it comes for you to leave this world, would you have contributed to making it a better place in your home, through your children, through your students, through your family? And he says, the one thing which will remain yours are the ideals you cherished. And of course, one has to be high-minded. When we are coming on the path, we have an ideal. And he says, never forsake those ideals, because that is going to decide how you act and what happens. And today I want to pick it up where Jayaji left it last time. He gave a beautiful talk. I was joking with some friends this morning. There were 40 people in the talk last time and about 12 this time. And it reminded me of the disciples of Christ and what it said in the Bible, that towards the end of his life, he started saying some very direct things and strong things and asked them, like Swami told some of his long-term students. He says, please correct this. I was with him one time in Italy in a bigger group. One of his very, very long-term members, students, wonderful devotee. And Swami says, I just want you to correct this way of working now. And she said, yes, sir. And we all understood that, of course, there's no right or wrong way in this world. Like Master said, sometimes you have to choose between bad and worse. And of course, that was not the situation on the spiritual path we are trying. But he was hinting, as you could see. And he left his body 2 years later, less than 2 years later. And he said that it's time to change. So I was joking this morning that Jayaji started last week on this profound topic of courage, receiving the hammer blows of the Guru. The spiritual path, he said, never is easy. Such a thing, he says, does not actually exist. I was listening to that talk because I had to follow up. I said, what a level he's picking it up from. He's not talking about vegetarian diet, standing in the sunshine to receive more prana. We could do that much easily. Once somebody asked Swamiji, sir, I eat fish. This was a question answer round. Swami says, well, what's the question over there? He says, what are my chances of being on the spiritual path of finding God? Swami didn't skip a beat. He said, you can find God through eating fish too. And he says, don't worry about those things. He said, I've spoken about it in greater depth in my books. My guru has also written. That was a new person, I remember, first time he had come. But he was saying, on one level, what is more difficult? To stop eating fish or guavas and such, or to change your heart's feelings? It reminds me of that story, of Swamiji being a young monk. And here we are all young. Like I said, Pune is a center which is growing slowly now, moving towards maturity. And Swamiji, when he was a young monk, somebody said, oh, Walter, you should focus on your diet. Look at me, I'm eating these grapes. And he says, why grapes? He says, Master taught that grapes purify the heart and develop devotion, love and devotion. And Swami says, that's what he told me to develop. I am going to join you. And they both started eating only grapes, morning to night. And 3 days, I think, passed by like that. And then Swami saw Master. And the beauty of having a Master, whether in body or not, is that he, on behalf of God, knows everything. And Master knew what's going on. And Master looked at him. He said, how are you doing, Walter? And he said, sir, I'm very well. I'm feeling very good. I don't remember the name of the other fellow. He said, both of us have been fasting on grapes. And Master said, oh, really? Oh, why is that? He says, sir, just to develop devotion and a pure heart, purifying the body. And Master says, wonderful, wonderful. Keep it up. Go till the very end of your fast. He said, but remember, God comes through a pure heart, not a pure stomach. Again, in a very gentle way. Of course, Master said it develops the heart. It works on the hearts, the nerves. But he was saying again, that as my disciple, as the one who has now come so close to me, as the one who had such a desire, Swami said he wanted God very much. And his two desires were to know truth and to share that truth of God realization to all. So here we are. I'll follow up on what Jayaji said. You all know. You can also please watch that talk. I consider it one of his best talks for Kriyabans and disciples. He told me to today cover the topic of what Sri Yukteswarji mentioned in his book, The Holy Science of Virya. Virya means heroic or heroism on the spiritual path, or heroic courage. And when I read that paragraph first, I said, Sri Yukteswarji says the need for developing heroic courage or heroic qualities. That word was not leaving his, interpretation and his explanation. Then I found that word in Master's writing. I found the same word, heroic courage, in the Bhagavad Gita, in Swami's writings. And I said, I have not explored that topic actually from that angle. And I said, let's see what this has to offer. And today we will go into tools as devotees, as disciples. How can we put ourselves before Guruji and we say, Lord, give me, show me, renew my understanding of the tools which will help me develop this virya, this heroic courage. But before I talk about it, I want to share, I think, how we all have come up, because I'll talk about many qualities and attitudes and techniques, but one is which right away came to my mind when Jayaji asked me. He said, I'm going to America. My brother is not well. You'll have to do this class. And I said, yes, yes, Jay, I'll do it. And there was the first quality of developing divine courage, willingness. That Swami writes that this simple attitude, he said, you will notice many times, just this simple attitude of saying yes, he says, brings success knocking on your door. So let's keep that in mind, that the ability to say, if it has come to me, of course, in a moment, if it is feeling right to me, Master used to say yes first, then think how you're going to do it. Yesterday was Sister Gyanamata's passing. Please come, Sandeep. Sister Gyanamata, his foremost lady disciple, what would she tell the nuns? She said, when the Master asks, first say yes and make it snappy. She says, make it snappy, make it fast. But many times, I have found this in myself. It is mentioned in the Gita also. And let's reflect on it, because it brings us perspective where we are evolving from. In the Gita, it says that we grow from unwillingness towards willingness. Swamiji says willingness. Many people think, oh, look at him. He's so willing. She's so willing. They are all very willing. But Swami, like somebody told him, everybody in Ananda is so beautiful. What smiles they have. What joy they express. Swami said to him, he said, if it was one or two people, you could say, he's special. He said, but when you see a group big enough where everybody is like that, he says, maybe the better question to ask is, I wonder what they do or how they live. Because it cannot be such a chance event. So, in the Gita it says that, how does the Gita begin actually? Let's go there. The pictures are more profound than words. When the armies are staged, Kauravas, Pandavas, from the Pandava side, Arjun says, okay, show me what's trying to happen. Take me there. And Arjun, Krishna guides the chariot. God is guiding, Guru is guiding us. Okay, this is your life. This is your role and responsibility. You say, okay. The first response is, this is too much. And you take your well-studied bow and you keep it aside. And you say, I can't do this. And that is where, so we are, Arjun symbolizes the universal devotee. We feel, no Lord, I can't do it. Or the next question comes, the mind comes in, and Swami says, you have to overcome the satanic influence of unwillingness. What does the mind say? Why do I have to do it? Maybe I don't have to do it. Oh, it's being asked of me, but it's not my responsibility. And you say, I'll come back. Thank you for asking. I was thinking sometimes the meeting, I am sure we've met the Guru so many times in the past lives like this. Like we meet somebody and you like them. You say, hey, nice shirt, good smile. And you say, oh, yeah, I do this. Me too. Similar interests. And then you see that the other person is getting more and more engaging. And you say, oh, let's stay in touch. I'll see you again. Thanks, nice meeting you. That something, you see the Guru, something is asked, you can see it in his eyes, that he will make me what I want. He can transform me. Like Master went, saw Sri Yukteswarji, immediately recognized him, went to his ashram. After a while he said, sir, I am going to the Himalayas, I want to find God. And Master Sri Yukteswarji said, I don't think the mountains will give you what you're looking for. And he said, no sir, in that meditative, peaceful surroundings, I will be able to meditate longer. And see, again the mind is saying, oh, I don't have to sweep the ashram maybe and cook for guests who used to come to Sri Yukteswarji's ashram at 1 a.m. What has disturbing my sleep, which will disturb my morning meditation, got to do with my spiritual progress? But let's also, friends, again as disciples, I would not start a how to meditate class like this, but what did Master say? He said, how will God come to us in meditation? How does Samadhi come to us? He said, meditation, when one can forget that he or she is meditating, they will find the goal. Now again, is it blanking our mind? I'm sitting here, but I'm not meditating. I'm really not meditating. It's been 5 minutes, I'm affirming that. I'm not meditating, I'm not doing the work, I don't want to even meditate. Lord, come now. It doesn't work like that. Again, Master said, fight with God, put the blame on Him. This is a tricky game. It's like walking the razor's edge, they say, actually. Now, I have often thought of it as the modern blades, which have more than one, because earlier I was thinking, what's your option if you're on the blade? You're already going to get cut. But then I think of it as like two blades. And if you walk anytime on the side, so you're in that gap, then you get hurt. Otherwise, it's a very smooth walk, actually. So the spiritual path by itself is extremely enjoyable. We are seeking happiness, Master says, and that's why we go from Shudra consciousness, where is lazy. No, I don't want to. If I do nothing, I'll be most happy, Arjun says. Sir, take me away from this. I can't do any of this. And Krishna says, no, you must. And then we start beginning our evolution. So I want to narrate a story, true story, which happened with my friend's brother. And I think that sums up how we feel sometimes when we are waking truly. Jayaji last time, a few times he said, that is the beginning of the spiritual path. That yes, we are all on the spiritual path. But like Swami said in one of his songs, he says, once you discover what it is, don't linger. He says, keep moving, go till the end. And this friend of mine told me a beautiful story. I've never forgotten it. It's very amusing also. This is morning time, wintry mornings, as they must be experiencing right now in Himachal Pradesh. And moms are doing what they do in the morning, waking up children. Hello, it's time, your bus is about to come, get up, get ready, your breakfast is ready. And this fellow was sleeping. He's sleeping. 5 more minutes, please. And finally she comes. She said, you must get up now, otherwise we'll have to drop you into school. Get up. He said, okay. He said, I'm getting up. Relax. He said, but you're my mother, and I want you to know something. She's like, yes, tell me. He's like, look, I'm 12 years old, and I just want you to know, because you're my mother, that ever since I was born, I have not been able to sleep properly. And that is how sometimes we feel. We tell the Guru, sir, yes, I'm waking up. It's like St. Augustine, I think. He said, Lord, make me a saint, but not as yet. Give me some more time, give me a little bit more time. And masters are like, okay. And friends, in the end, some people were leaving the ashram when Master was alive. He had that magnetism, as we know. You would think nobody would stir from their chairs if he was around. But Swamiji said, no, they were leaving. And he went to Master. He said, so people are leaving. What can we do? And he said, Satan is testing the organization. Many more will leave. And Swami says, is that what was happening? My own thoughts were very confused in the last 4 months. And Master said, oh yes, he was. And he will continue to test this organization for a while now. And then Swamiji said, sir, thank you. I'm grateful that I'm on the path still. And Master said, yes. And Swami says, at one point I told myself, even if I'm not understanding anything, what are my options? And interestingly, in that moment, Master, I think he certainly praised Swamiji. He says, that's the attitude. He says, that's the attitude. What are our options? So I want to read a few lines from Courage, Calmness. The first chapter is on courage, which Master interestingly says is an innate quality of the soul. We may also think of friends of the spiritual path, discipleship. See, we have to be creative. I remember, I'm sure all of us have had this experience. We see autobiography of a yogi. We've not even read it. But for us to become in the end disciples and kriyabans, there must have been a soul recognition from the very beginning. When we see that, we say, okay, he has the power. What is his power for? Not for himself, for you and me. So if he has the power, it has to be transmitted to us. So if we are not able to feel it, now of course we have to give ourselves time. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, as Master translated it, he said, I come to most people, disciples, you might say, at the end of their life. Swami would say, in this long scheme of things, what is one lifetime? Without, let's say, completely merging. Of course, the Jivan Mukta state is when he does come while we are alive. But Master was saying, I often think of it this way, that he has the power. I am but a stone. He is chiseling me. He is working on me. Now the world works on us, and when we start moving away from it, and I then think that where do we run? We run towards the person with the biggest hammer of all, the Guru. Because he knows our kinks from past lives also. And he says, okay, but he's loving. He gives us time. He's like that sculpture. He polishes. He removes the dust. He's like Michelangelo, you might say. He was, you might say, the guru of the statues he created. How did he work? I think it was he or Leonardo da Vinci. They say that when he would get a block, he would get commissioned by the popes and monarchs of those time to make statues for them. They would send a huge boulder of a marble, and they would say, make something for our church, entrance, altar, palace. And he would simply sit there, sometimes for up to 4 days, and look at the stone, and finally he would pick up his chisel and hammer, and he would start working. And this would be the product. And people say, sir, how do you work so fast? He said, remember those 4 days I sat in the beginning? They said, yes. He said, I would ask the stone, I would ask myself, my inner voice, what is trying to become of this? What is this stone destined to become? Once he said, I see what it is supposed to become in perfect detail, he says that image does not leave my mind. All I have to then do is remove the remaining stone. Isn't that beautiful? So that is what the Guru, you see the Guru, he sees you, he knows what he has to do. We know what we have to become. We have promised him, actually, Master says, we choose this birth and these steps up there, but we come here, it's a realm of forgetfulness. It's a realm of relativity. We see so many people, like I've had this question from so many devotees. They say, but sir, no one in my office energizes. Why do I have to do them? They are very happy. They are very energetic people, very creative. They don't meditate. Why do I have to meditate every day? And I thought about it, and once I told them, I said, see, you're like a good car. You're running on very refined fuel. Just coffee and XYZ will not run you. You need prana. And the Guru is giving that. Swami said one day he didn't do energization exercises. And he said, I tried to work, I work. And he says, my body was not moving. It was like I was wrapped up in cobwebs. And he says, then I energized and all of those left me. And he said, I realized that, that is how people feel. And he picked up that practice. So Master is saying over here that courage is an innate quality of the soul. I want to read a few lines and then we will go into the tools, as I mentioned, which I've already been discussing, but we'll make a list and Premdas will help me in writing them down. Master's words: tears and sighs on the battlefield of life are the liquid cowardice of a weak mind. Those who give up the fight become prisoners within the wall of their own ignorance. Life is nothing if not a continuous overcoming of problems. How do we think of life? At least when I was coming to Ananda, I was thinking I'll get a small hut, maybe a cow. Because as I was thinking I'll become a monk, maybe they said, tell the monks, you have to wash this cow, take care of it. And what did I get? Laptops, mobile phones, travel tickets, bills of all kinds, and outreach responsibilities. Let me read that again. Life is nothing if not a continuous overcoming of problems. And because sometimes my mind says, oh, wait a minute, something is going miserably wrong. This is not how it was supposed to be. But Master is saying, no, it is continuous overcoming problems. I remember, I'll give you a more testimonial of this, how it works. We had our first week of seclusion in the Himalayas, monks, 1 week of silence. I was very happy. All of us were very happy. We got the food arranged, place, tent. We said, this is our altar. every day from tomorrow we'll be in silence for 1 week. Everybody fine. If we need to write, we write on this whiteboard. Yes. I let everybody, prayed, had a beautiful week. I had a beautiful week. But I remember that night I prayed to Swamiji because he had done a seclusion over there in 1960s. And he said he was very peaceful. So I also did a prayer. I said, Swamiji, please make me feel the kind of peace you felt over here in this 1 week. And I slept. And my alarm was for 5:30 in the morning, and it must have been 5:28 when I got this dream, because I woke up and then my alarm started ringing. The dream was very simple and short, to the point. Swamiji came smiling. He's looking at me, and he shows me a white smartphone. And he asks me, Aditya, do you have one of these? And I used to have a Nokia phone, those 1,000 rupee ones, very simple handset. But I was getting busy in life, and he said, do you have one of these? I said, no, sir. He said, I think you should buy one. This is exactly what you need. And I said, thank you, sir. And he smiled, and the dream ended, and I woke up. I said, what was that? I said, I should write it down. What? But I was processing that I asked for peace, and he shows me a smartphone. And then basically the alarm rang, wake up! That of course you have to meditate. Of course you have to be in silence. But life is nothing if not a continuous overcoming of problems. Towards the end of his life, Swamiji used to remind us. He said, he said the saints, the closer they get to God, they pray actually for tests. He said in the beginning, don't pray. He says, they will find you. He said, your difficulties will find you. But he says, sometimes the saints are in such an ecstatic state that they pray. And he said, why? Because they know very soon the gift they are about to get is eternal. So he says, how does it matter what happens in these last? And you can think Swamiji's last few years. But of course, they had that power. What should we do from our side? We should be willing, we should be open, we should be patient, we should be persevering, we should be grateful. Thank you for showing me a smartphone. Thank you for putting me in this position. Now, it may not be our first attitude, like I said. We say, oh, let me sleep longer. I'll wake up fresher. But we've been sleeping for a very long time. Sleeping itself can become a habit. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is differentiating between Sattvic action and tamasic action. He says, both look very similar. He said, but how is Sattvic different? That is our topic. Heroic courage is required in that. He said, a man is engaged in activity with focus and zeal and concentration, but no personal gratification. Like Master wrote a line, a vow for his monks, and he says, in fulfilling thy wishes, I will be ambitious. That we have finally come to him and we say, Lord, whatever you want. And Swami told Master, sir, I'd like to be a hermit. He says, because you've been that in the past. He says, in this life, we have to do intense activity. So we have to feel what is his command to us and accordingly accept it. Another line of Master. There can be no life that is not full of problems. If we are trying to create one, we are lowering our consciousness to the Shudra mentality. The sorrows of the normal man are not inherent in the conditions of life. They are born out of the weaknesses of the human mind. That if we open our door, I can't do this. That is what we will remain. Somebody told me decades ago, Swamiji asked a group of people, let's do this project, let's do teaching, let's do outreach of some sort. And this Acharya was telling me some people didn't. And she said, and they still haven't. And she said, many of them are not with us. But she said, Swami was giving them a way to become channels for such a line. To overcome what happens, let's say, in teaching or in doing anything. Why are we doing or finding ourselves in a particular situation in life? Wherever we are, wherever. Offices for that matter, ashrams. I came to that point after I became a leader. I said, what am I really working on? Organization? Am I keeping an organization running? I had that question one day. And the immediate thought was, absolutely not. This is family. These are all friends and family, especially from past lives. You're just trying to work with them. You're just trying to help them. They and the gurus are trying to help you, because who knows? Maybe I ran away from my family in a past life. We don't know. I know of a lady, very touching story. She became my yoga student in Lavasa, and we were discussing, and she said, I read Autobiography of a Yogi. I don't know the details, but there is a hint of things, how things can go wrong sometimes. And I said, oh, really? She said, yeah, my mom used to read this book. She had a different guru, but she used to read this book. I said, oh, really? How is she? What does she do? She said, I haven't seen her. Now, this lady is retired herself. She said, I haven't seen her in the longest time. I remember she said, we went to the Delhi station one day because her guru was going to the Himalayas for starting an ashram. And we had gone there to greet him. And she said, suddenly, she boarded the train and left us. She said, I never saw her. I said, my goodness. And she said, I was in 4th grade. My goodness. I said, maybe it was the right step, maybe it wasn't. We don't know. But things happen sometimes. So again, why are we in this situation? Because our dharma, to fulfill our dharma is duty. What is duty, Krishna says? Duty is not something which one person tells you. The guru may tell you, but he's, I think, more than anything, just doing a reminder. When Krishna told Arjuna, this is your duty to fight, Master actually says Arjuna was already an avatar. He was free. So was there a karmic compulsion there? In a duty, often there is. In our case, it is. But Master says a duty in the Gita, Swamiji explains, a duty is simply, it's the urge of life itself to express. Life has been created by God. We cannot not act, and we have to fulfill our duty. Often, what is our karma also becomes our dharma. That it is our duty to fulfill. We are here just for that. If we can calmly, and now this is a tool, if we can calmly accept our karma, our responsibilities, and maybe we can start writing actually now. First was willingness, then is acceptance. If we can, Patanjali says, and we are all practicing the Raja Yoga as taught by Patanjali, he says, how do you overcome karma? And how do you finally burn all karma? He says, calm acceptance. How do we progress on the spiritual path? We come, but sometimes we have this question, which is all fine. Is this really so long? Why did God create us? Many people years later also, they have this question, but why did He create me? Now, in the right attitude, a child can ask that question of the parent and maybe get a good response and get away with it also. Maybe get a blessing, because he's right, he didn't ask perhaps to be created. Master says we ask it, but if we start carping and get emotional, he says you're not accepting what is. What did Buddha say? He said to his disciples when they asked him that question, he said, you might as well spend that energy which you are putting into asking that question, into finding the way out. Calm yourself, find ways. I want to read one or two more lines because they're very helpful. This is very important, again, for disciples, I would say, again, because it helps. It otherwise seems very esoteric. Sorrow has no objective existence. If you constantly affirm it, it exists. Deny it in your mind, and it will exist no longer. And then this is a book Swamiji gave to Master gave to Swamiji and the other monks. This is called The Imitation of Christ. If you want a copy later, I can help you get one. And I want to read just two of these lines. Thomas à Kempis was a saint of the 13th century, and he was a monk. In deep meditation, Christ would appear to him, and they would have dialogues. And these are the recordings of those dialogues. And I want to read just a few lines from two of those. This is called, Of the Few Who Love the Cross of Jesus. It's like, reminded me of Krishna's line, of 1,000, one seeks me, of 1,000 who seek me, one truly finds me. And friends, it is very important for us, like I was starting by saying, idealism. Why do we want to affirm those ideals? Because we can forget. Why did we come on the spiritual path? I was recently telling somebody, when you become an embodiment of Sankhya philosophy tells us why we won't find happiness where we are. I says, then yoga practice is not hard. Because Patanjali's Yoga Sutra start. Yoga is not philosophy. Philosophy is before that. Explanation, discussion is before that. Yoga is actually a science, tools and techniques. So what does he say over there? That when we come to the point of realizing, am I just this body? I cannot be. Where did my loved ones go? What am I really trying to give to the world? What is happening? Then Master says, when you're asking the right questions, we move into the spiritual realms and we do yoga practice where, for example, another tool is about, let's say, meditation, Hong Sau practice. Where does Hong Sau lead us? To the state of calmness. But what happens in perfect calmness to the breath? Breathlessness. When the breath does not exist, the devotee is finally convinced. That state is known as, in Hindi, Vishwas. Vida Shwas, without breath. In that state, instantly the faith, which is the topic for next week, Devarshiji will cover it, is understood that I am not this body. I was meditating through this body. I was applying the technique through my mind. The technique is not the goal, Master said. But now I have gone, I am much more. State of Samadhi comes like that, Master says. So breathlessness develops our faith. Let me read these lines. Jesus has now many lovers of his heavenly kingdom, but few who bear his cross. He has many who desire consolation, but few who desire tribulation. All desire to rejoice with him. Few are willing to suffer something for him. And with him, often what do? God, Guru, they don't need me. I'm too small. I have come just for their blessings. He's saying, walk with him. They say there was a man who helped Christ carry the cross when at some point he couldn't carry it physically himself. I don't know, but he received a great, great blessing and such. Many love Jesus as long as they do not meet with any adversity. That's why this is not shared in how to meditate classes. It can be. Maybe at some point this will become common knowledge. What else is discipleship? Many praise him and bless God, Jesus, as long as they receive consolation from him. And another line. Now this is Christ talking. Son, you cannot possess perfect liberty unless you wholly deny yourself. I'm now jumping some lines. Remember this short and perfect saying, says Christ. Forsake all and you shall find all. Leave your desires and you shall find rest. Consider this well, and when you shall have put it into practice, you will understand all things. And then the disciple says, Lord, this is not the work of one day, nor children's sport. For in this short sentence is included all the perfection of a religious. Christ, see how sweet, his friend over here. Son, you should not be turned back, nor quickly cast down when you hear what is the way of the perfect, but rather you should be inspired to reach great heights, or at least to aspire to attain them. I wish it were so with you, and that you were come so far that you were no longer a lover of yourself. In the beginning, we share, develop devotion, learn chanting, sing to Master. It will help you develop your devotion. What did Master tell him one day when Swamiji woke up with the thought, oh, I am feeling devotion and I have developed devotion. He came very happily out of his meditation room and Master saw him. And Master gently reminded him. He said, Walter, how can you love God if you continue to love yourself? Again, I often think of the caliber that Swamiji carried. That in the moment when he got, you might say, one gift, another was being shown to him. And that is where we are after these years, that okay, I have done this, now do this. In the end, what Jayaji was mentioning last time, what are we really trying to overcome? The ego. I want to relate a story at this point, and then he goes on to say other things. And this ties into selflessness. And you'll have to take pictures because there are many other things. It ties into faith. This story I'll be sharing. Mostly of you have heard about it. When I was approaching my surgical training, it was my interview. And I had read on the previous night, Krishna telling Arjuna that as long as you think you can run your life, I will observe. But the day you invite me, I will come and take complete charge of your life. I read those lines and you can imagine you get goosebumps. I said, complete charge? Everything till that time was seeming so convincing. I said, complete charge of our life? I said, my Lord, please give me an opportunity. But it was 10:30 p.m. So I said, well, I can only pray. Maybe he'll take charge of my sleep, or, I'll get a very good sleep or a vision or something. So I said, please take charge of my life. And I slept. And next morning was my interview, very important day of my life. And I was going for it before time and all that. And I found a beggar. He was blind. It's a long story. I'll make it very short. In short, he wanted to meet the president of the in a country, APJ Abdul Kalam. And I tried to help him. In that moment, I considered my blessing that I didn't have a reasoning mind which told me my interview is there. The verse came to my mind. Words, literally. I didn't hear, but the words came. I can take complete charge of your life if you invite me. I said, now's my time. By afternoon, I will know if that verse is true or not, because I was that kind. I want to test it. I said, Lord, you have put this. Because see, everything, what is acceptance? What is, I said, our responsibility in this life? If God exists and is running billions of galaxies with clockwork precision, He has come in this life as friends, relatives, enemies, tests. He knows what He's doing. I have to accept it. So I immediately turned the tables on Him. I said, Lord, I was going for my interview. You put this beggar in my way. He wants to do a difficult thing. I'll go and help him. Please take charge of my interview. And I left. An interview for post-graduation. Already by that time, I was denied thrice by the director of the hospital, his PA, thrice by the executive director of DNB, who controls every post-graduation seat of doctors in this country. My application had been rejected. So finally, this was like a golden opportunity. I said, you take it. I was selfless. I didn't want to do post-graduation I was blessed, you might say. I said, I'll serve mankind, I'll help them. Actually, I always wanted to be a physician, but I got the option of surgery. I remember in that moment, I was myself surprised. Because see, these qualities are inside of us, but they have to come to the surface for us to also recognize, I'm, let's say, like that devotee who was throwing flowers on the image, and suddenly he's throwing flowers on himself. That, it was inside me. These qualities which I was praising in others are inside me. So they said, we don't have medicine, but surgery, there's one seat. And the whole story began. But anyway, I spent 6 hours with that man, 7 hours. When I finally went to the hospital to apologize to the professor for missing the interview, this is what he told me. I was sitting and he came, he said, yes. I said, sir, good evening. You had called me this morning for the interview. And he said, oh, beta, I'm so sorry. I kept you waiting all day. He said, I was stuck up in another work in a different hospital. I just came. He said, my phone battery has also died. Besides, he said, but honestly, I forgot about the interview. I said, no problem, sir, no problem. I was convinced as a disciple would be. It was like Krishna was knocking. So who do you think is running this universe? You, your willpower, your desire for an interview, or me? I bowed before that unseen presence. My mind was stretched beyond imagination as I traveled back to my home across Delhi, seeing millions of people. And I said, what a panorama. What a game. We go through life calling it unfair. He does not care. God doesn't care. Who is he? Let's argue about him. He's there quietly observing, waiting, an invitation. So when we can do that, that is courage. Courage, Swami says, is of many kinds. One is you just go ahead and do something. Then you are faced with the repercussions and you run. He says that is blind courage. We'll see what happens. No. You are not, it is tamasic courage on one level. You didn't put your mind, maybe you do something wrong. Energy can be used in a wrong way. Then he says is the other kind of courage when a test comes. You say, well, this is truly, it's like the first one you might actually say something like the pigeon, when the cat comes, the pigeon says, it closes its eyes. Or the ostrich puts its head in the mud. Oh, if I don't see the cat or the lion, I won't have to face the situation. The second kind of courage says, well, the lion is here. What can I do about it? So you've come to that acceptance. The third kind of courage says, okay, let me see how I can overcome this lion or this cat and how I can flap my wings and not give in. And the fourth courage, Swami says, which we are all trying to experience, is divine courage. When he says, when you are developing these qualities, the yamas and niyamas, Sri Yukteswarji said, bring about heroic courage on the spiritual path. Non-attachment to an interview. Non-attachment, Swami, how did he succeed so much? How did he write so many books? How did he write so much music? Sometimes he said he would be given a music before he had finished his prayer for it. He said, because I was only offering myself as a channel which God needs. Krishna himself says, I work through instruments only. He said, but Divine Mother gave it to me before I could finish my prayer. I woke up to these songs. So there is a bounty, like Christ said, the harvest is plenty, but the workers are few. And as disciples again, non-attachment, non-stealing, of course. In the world we go about, this is mine. Master said, I prefer a soul to a crowd. We are not even into that game. Sometimes recently somebody asked me in Coimbatore, why are you so few? If you have such high teachings, why are you so few? Later on, we gave them some answers. We are trying, we are doing teacher training, we are expanding the teachings. But later on, Jyotishji mentioned a very interesting answer. He said, I didn't want to say over there how difficult our path is, because it is a true one. That we come, and like I was saying, we tell God, let's be in touch, let's catch up later, and I'll come back to you, and we forget. Then, of course, what are the other qualities? Now, yamas and niyamas are in the lower two chakras. We want to strengthen them because the kundalini energy, which brings about divine awakening, has to rise through those gateways, you might say. Cleanliness of heart, purity of heart. I remember this. Now, I'm not trying to tell these stories about myself, but I could only draw from my direct experience. I was sometimes never tired after 48 hours of shifts. I was not. People would say, you're a fool. You're always saying, I'll do this, I'll do this. I told my friend one day when he said, you're a fool, I said, I'm not. I said, I'm just trying to see how much I can say yes and manage with. Because I said, I'm not married. I don't have to go home even to my parents. I stay in a hostel. I have to learn this skill. I had less time actually than the others because mine was a rotatory posting. I said, how? I am happy. I'm not tired. Why should I not say yes? So again, we are sustained by that flow, purity of heart. Tapasya is required because at every point Swami says, the temptation to say no is there. That is where we are evolving from, remember? If I say no to those, if I don't answer the phone, maybe I should switch off my phone and no calls will come to me. But karma will find a way. Jayaji was making that example. Divine Mother's arrow. You can deflect for a point, he says. One day that arrow will find a way into that hole of your armor. He says, she knows. He says, believe me, she knows how to find you. Master says, actually, we say, you're not coming to me, Lord, you're not coming. He says, actually, it's the other way around. God is like a hound. He's chasing us. And we are running faster and faster away. And we're trying to dodge him. And we say, but why am I running? And I should not be running. And he says, no, slow down. I'm there. So it's a very interesting game of discrimination also. Then I want to mention some qualities of perseverance and patience. I was looking up yesterday if neurologists have found where courage resides in our brain, and I was very pleasantly surprised they have. They did some test where they showed people snakes, and snakes were coming closer to them, but they had said they will do a treadmill task for a certain point, so they did not give it up. So they were applying courage in those tests. Where is courage situated? Any guesses? In the prefrontal lobe. Actually, in the frontal lobe, about 2 inches behind, 1.5, 2 inches behind the spiritual eye. They have also found last year that resilience, which is the other way of saying perseverance, patience, austerity, continued positive application of willpower, willingness, solution-orientedness, these are all tools, affirmations. But perseverance, they said, is situated also in the prefrontal lobe. So now we know what are the tools that we have. First, like Arjun, we want to keep a straight spine. When a problem comes, it may be an initial impulse. Oh, why me? But then you say, okay, give me 2 minutes to accept this. Then you say, okay, give me another minute to bring my spiritual eye at this point. Give me, like Swami once did when he was in a mood, a few minutes to do a pranayam. As we do the pranayam, the energy comes up. Fear, anxiety, lack of courage. Where does lack of courage come? Environment is very important in this, and that is also one tool to put ourselves in the right environment. Friends, society is not as harmless as we think it to be. Master says, people say, oh, but nobody does this. He says that's one of the most common replies you get. Oh, but look at people. Like somebody told me, they're not energizing, they're not meditating, they're very happy. What happens in society is, it's like this lukewarm approach, moderation, which Krishna actually says in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, you have to be heroically courageous. Lukewarm devotion will not get you there. Live and let live. Sleep and let me sleep. Don't ask of me things. This is too much. I know what is right for me. We often think the training master received was unique. I think Sri Yukteswar's training is required all the time for all of us. Of course, he allowed master to enjoy, do those walks by the Ganges, sleep, relax, eat. But when it is time for training, we have to submit ourselves more and more. I spoke of grace. What is grace of? Because that is also a tool. Now we are disciples. That is a blessing. You might say, now, so far was our 25%. When we come on the spiritual path and we realize, like I did that day, oh my goodness, there is God. There is Guru through whom he operates. They have divinity. They are divinity manifested. Then we say, and we feel that, friends, moral courage, and let's think of it in our own lives. I remember very clearly the day I was inspired to do much, much more was the day I saw Swami Kriyanandaji. First it was when I read autobiography, when I saw Swamiji, and later I was processing what really happened. And maybe for you it was coming to the center, seeing other acharyas, and again when we see a great soul, we are reminded of that. Because what is really happening, we should now think about it. What is really happening over there? We are being uplifted spontaneously in the magnetism of the Guru, of the place. But I want to keep it to Guru in this point, that the Guru is beyond form, beyond time. If we invite him, prayer, which is a tool, when you are in the presence of the Guru, Sri Yukteswarji said, Shraddha develops. And Shraddha is, Devarshiji will talk about it next week, but it opens the heart and you say, how can I do it? From Shraddha actually comes heroic courage. So we say, okay, I want to do this more. Sri Yukteswar says over there, willingness to obey the guidance of the Master. How many times Satan, which is quite a force, Master said it is not an imagination, it is a real force. Satan makes us think, oh, my Guru is dead. Maybe when Swamiji was alive, some people would think, if they thought he was their Guru, they would say, oh, but he's traveling, he's in Europe right now. They are everywhere. They are all the time with us. We have to develop that connection. Again, this underscores the importance of the meditation techniques that we have, Kriya especially. In Kriya, we feel bliss. Master manifested bliss over all other qualities. Swamiji, all saints have defined God himself as bliss. When we can touch that consciousness, that faith develops and we can draw more and more of it in our lives. So, gratitude now. I want to come to gratitude. What is gratitude? I have found that after acceptance to be one of the more difficult things to practice, that thank you for these tests. But they say we must, because gratitude is what opens the door of abundance. As a doctor, I can tell you this. I have dealt with many children who are running in the hospital because their tooth is about to be extracted or their stitches have to be removed, and they know what they're going to go through. And they're like, no, let them be there. Let the stitches be there. Or they say, it's not aching, my tooth is not aching. They have a swollen mouth. They're like, no, I'm fine. Don't do anything. That is how we behave sometimes, that, Lord, I'm just right. Don't. But gratitude comes, the experience of spiritual dimensions truly begin coming after the Guru has been able to knock off the false realities, the koshas, the sheaths that we have built upon ourselves. Swami says, initially like a blanket, like a shawl you might say, later like rocks. When he painfully, Sri Yukteswarji Master says, he used to dislodge them, blow by blow. He says the ego, which we are all trying to overcome, is rarely dislodged except rudely. Of course, the Guru has to be very calm, compassionate. He has no personal agenda. But then he can see you are not happy, but you're not also allowing me to do the procedure. Actually, I was very intrigued. That is the chapter. Sri Yukteswar writes procedure. And we, at least in hospitals, we use that word procedure. It's like, oh, well, they say, give me a tablet. We say, no, you'll have to go through a procedure. A 4-hour procedure, 8-hour procedure. So that is how it is. So anyway, now let's see if we have any questions, and I'll also see if there were some points I missed. You're taking pictures of this? Yeah, perfect. Any questions now, please? We have about 7 to 8 minutes. Of course, while you're thinking about procedures, I'll mention a few lines over here. Group meditations, Sankirtans. We have started doing corporate classes. Now, it may not seem like a perfect way to develop courage, but it helps me. You're going there where they say, okay, no name of God, Guru, book, scripture, but teach us how to feel uplifted. And you say, well, okay, let me try it. It triggers a different side of you. And you feel happy because you're sharing the light. Master said we should do that. Swami has written books about it. So we should think about it. Group prayers. This is again a counsel I give especially to disciples. Last week I was asking, there was thin attendance in a class. And I said, where are the others? I asked 2 disciples. They said, I don't know. We don't know. I said, but didn't you make that promise last week that accept me into this family of self-realization? I said, you became Guru Bhais and now you don't know where are your brothers and sisters? You should know. You should pray. You should call. It's time for the class. Where are you? I had reached, I remember, 30 minutes before the How to Meditate class when I attended that in Ananda. Because you want to be of service. That is a devotee's way. What can I give? What did Swamiji say to Master? He said, sir, I give you my unconditional love and obedience, not for what you can give me, but as your spiritual son, for what you are, for what you embody. I don't need anything that you can give. I need anything. I need what you will give, but that will come. So that is very important. Prayers for others. And one thing which I have found very, very helpful, also to assimilate these high teachings, as you all know, friends. Of course, I'm speaking now about, and I'm still trying most of these points, all these points I shared. 9 years, I have found service to be very helpful. Service leads to self-forgetfulness. It is a directional movement. When we forget ourselves, in meditation, in service, in serving others, it is not, like I said, organizational. Who are you really serving? I'm serving myself. We are all only one. That is the state of samadhi. Jyotishji said we can work backwards also. If we are one, naturally I should be non-attached. Naturally I should be so and so and so. So we can also work from that angle. Any more questions? I was also thinking of some stories of courage. Of course, Master was a master, but think of the human side of it. When close to 100 years ago, he was going alone on that boat to America. Awakened souls, how he perceived them, how he vowed to awaken them, how he said, I will go. The other story where he didn't know English. He set off for America without knowing English, how to speak in English properly, and gets an invitation much before reaching Boston on the ship. And he says, I will. Will you speak? I will. And then he stands there for 20 minutes because he cannot talk in English. And people have started laughing by that time. And he prays to Sri Yukteswar. Courage, see, a high kind of courage. He had the courage up to that point. I'll face this situation, I'll try to overcome it. But when it is not happening, and that is again why the life of a devotee is hard. Because Jyotishji recently was reminding us, he says, how else will we remember God at all the time? And also in the end realize, when that little trace of ego is also gone, who really was doing it all? Again, you might say, as a disciple's point of view, Patanjali says the ego was given to us. We are not actually the ego. We have operated through it. We are that dream reality, you might say. Many times I try to remind myself, if I'm complaining, do I have the right to complain? Maybe in the dream I do, little bit. But in the bigger scheme of things, if God has become me, He must be complaining. He should complain, oh, I'm stuck in you, get me out. But as I said, the path can be made from that sharp blade of a razor to something which is smooth, where this is how it is. We learn the spiritual laws, as Sri Yukteswarji said, and then we move. And we should never forget, Swami says, the courage that was expressed by our gurus, by Swamiji, the courage that will make us like him when we follow in his footsteps. Master used to tell the monks in his ashram, just by living in the same property and building, you will not find, as me, he said, you will not find God. Many rats and mice are living on this property. He says, every night you must make the complete offering of yourself to God and convince him, prove him that he is all you want, again and again and again. He said he will test you. So also, and we want to do that, like I said, Swamiji I found many times in his talks, and that's why it's good to listen to his talks. He would speak for the majority of the time, not about actually techniques and meditation so much. He would speak of the need of understanding Shankhya, because that is where forgetfulness comes. Even after coming on the path, he used to always remind us, God is the only solution. Look at the suffering around. Difficult times are coming. People are not happy. Which is to say, you must turn in that direction. But truth itself, he would not state so much, because it should be understated always, because it has to be discovered anew by each person. So they would explain us the need, they would give us the pathway and the map. Their magnetism as disciples, let's bank on that, is there, but then they want us to do the work. Jai Guru. Thank you, friends. This is from my side. If there are some more points which I have forgotten, I'll send them in a mail. But please, let's have some questions at least, one or two. Non-attachment. Yes. See, non-attachment can be developed. Like now, there are two things. Master said, ultimately everybody will reach the goal. He says, but we can reach there with less suffering or more. Less suffering is the way of, you might say, calm discrimination. What are we really getting attached to? Like I said, at some point we naturally also reach that point of understanding, I must not just be this body. Like I used to see patients dying. Of course, I was not feeling what they're going through, but I would ask a question after they had left and I was making their papers. I was like, is he really gone? I mean, what was really happening? Is this really the end of the story? And when I had asked that question enough number of times, there was like an answer trying to come out of my soul memory. But it came, I required an autobiography or a Gita to understand that, oh, of course, all these great souls are saying it is not the end. They had a certain time, now they've gone, they may get it again, and such. We are a work in progress. Non-attachment is not beneficial because it binds us. Likes and dislikes come over there. I don't like smartphones. I don't like to talk to people. I don't like traveling, let's say. Or I don't like to meditate. Well, how will you get the experience of what lies beyond the breath and body? So, likes and dislikes have to be dropped impartially to experience the universal ways that have been suggested. You're, after all, listening to the scriptures and the saints. So if they have added their testimony, we have to slowly get past it. Again, I was asking somebody, how much will our family and friends and best wishers be able to help us if we are dying on the spot? You're about to die. You're struggling for your last few breaths. It's an imagination. Swami used to say, imagine the worst things. He says it helps you develop discrimination. They'll be like, bye, we love you, or something like that. Maybe they'll say Oms. I'm not making fun of anybody, but this is why we are children before God. So if somebody is showing us, you ask that question, why am I attached? Perhaps if there's a reality, as Shankya suggests, then let me experiment with it. Again, like I said, friends, beyond a certain point, we have to pick it up. That is why this is a food for thought for disciples and Kriyabans, especially because our mind and heart by that time is prepared. That's why courage. He started with courage, Jayaji. That this is required to explore. It's like a journey up that we want to make it to the end of the journey and help others also. Many times, I remember, I'll end with this story unless there are other questions. My first meeting, we were all the monks meeting Swamiji in 2008 in Gurgaon. He started the meeting by saying, and it was a pleasant evening with him, tea in his house. He started by saying, even as we are talking right now and meeting over here, there is a war going on in the astral worlds between light and darkness. Very difficult times are in stock for all of us, for the whole world. He said, I don't know if I'll be alive, but you will all perhaps see those difficult times. He said, then he spoke of India and other countries going to war, the world war. Then he said, well, I want you all to be courageous, channels of light, joy. Of course, not carrying weapons. That would be a shame. Amazing. Because did he see that religious fanatics would carry? I mean, of course, it's the way of the world history also, that courage is of a certain kind. He was saying, be in God, in that vibration, and nothing will be able to touch you. So the path of a true devotee is not about what gifts am I getting from God. Even in my meditation, Master told his advanced disciples, you must do your meditation because you love God, not for expectation even of peace or bliss. Nishkam karma. Loving the lover, not the gifts of the lover. Loving the Creator, not the gifts of the Creator. That is true service. Serving others without any desire. doing your work, making your money, earning your salary, interacting where it is appropriate. But a disciple always has a much greater inner life than what? Because outer life, Master said, even in bringing the Bhagavad Gita into a written form, he said, I have lost some. Swami writes it in the essence of Bhagavad Gita. He says, something is lost at every step. So a devotee has the direct pathway, especially all of us through Kriya and deep devotion, to tune into what is the consciousness which is being suggested through these books and talks and life and personality of my Guru. Yes? So quite a stretch. I personally find it quite a stretch of my mind. But it's a good exercise. Master says the mind is like, the more you stretch it, it's like a rubber band, the greater it becomes. Stretcher, more and stretch with experience, stretch with experience. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Uh-huh. See, non-attachment also means, the question is, how can we correlate our dharma and family worldly responsibilities? I would say again, God has put you there, like my surgical training. Now at a certain point, I left that training because I felt now I have to leave. Now people told me, didn't you say a miracle brought you that degree? And now you're leaving it halfway. Shame on you. Are you going to be affected by opinions? Or will you follow truth? So that posting, that where you are, is also God's responsibility, and include Him over there. Lord, come with me to the office. For example, you may ask a question, why are you with those people who you are with in the office? I think it is a connection, it's a magnetism, it is a group activity that has to be done. Not good or bad karma, it is just what it is, and one should always be calm and cheerful. That is what we are trying to achieve in the end. So we bring God over there also. Friends, this is a directional practice. We should not be overwhelmed. I don't want to see. How many are coming next week, by the way? Can I see a show of hands? Some are traveling, but yeah. Sandeep, you're traveling? Because this crowd is thinner than the last week. So it should not go down further. Yes? Any other questions? Yes, Sandeep. Yeah.
Those big ones are really enough, secure.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we do? Only meditate and help divine Guru help us overcome those problems or tests. Or should we, after meditation, should we actually work on those?
Absolutely. Very, very good question. When, let's say, an overwhelming test comes to us, should we just meditate, or should we, after meditation, do something about it? I think you should do something about both. The second option. Of course, meditate because we are processing something, we are going through something. Swamiji said one time, he said he had a very difficult life, as we all know. And he said, somebody said, but sir, those tests were big. He said, yeah, I could handle them somehow. And then somebody said, will we also have to go through tests? He said, oh yes, each one of you. And people were silent. Then he said, he said, not the level of what I had to go through, but each one has tests. He said, I went through mine. You will also have to go through yours. But then he said at that time, he said, when the tests gets overwhelming, he said, the best you can do is hold on to Divine Mother's feet and just don't let go. Because on where we are, even the will to meditate, applying that reasoning that I will benefit from it. So otherwise what happens after sometimes people say, I've been doing my meditation, like you said, but nothing has changed in 2 days, 2 months. Sometimes it goes on for years, why not? But like I said, if you have the attitude, non-attachment, nishkam karma, tests are coming, I will calmly accept it. Be in a good environment, surround yourself with positive people, be with those who lift your consciousness. Do not stay alone at that time. Take all possible measures you can. But in the end you say, I will walk through this. This is a path of courage. And God is with me. Like Krishna said, I am with you, invite me, invite the grace of Guru. Many times we forget this. Put reminders where you can remember, Guru is with me. We have started an afternoon meditation now from 12:45 to 1. We do a small meditation, an affirmation, reading from Swamiji's book, and of course a prayer. That in those 15 minutes we all remember, okay, no matter what I am doing, I am a disciple and I am feeling my Guru's grace once again. And then we go forth, because remember friends, I have seen the really big tests, and others say this who have been much longer on the path, the real big changes in our life, the real big gifts. Like Swami, what was his big gift? Meeting Yogananda. It happens by the Guru's grace. The book reaches you, he meets you, he blesses you. So the real big changes, we should not forget that we need our master at that time with us. Yeah? Satsang is very important. Yeah, I was trying to make this point a few minutes ago. We should think of others. It is a very difficult time when we are selfless. Swami says, the more you think of others, he says, the more you will create a blanket of protection around you. And that is why we call ourselves Guru Bhais, Satsang, family. We may be staying separately, but we are all children of the same Father. Everybody is. But we are those who have, Master says that the disciples actually feel more love. God gives love equally to everybody. But he says disciples feel it more. They may say, oh, miracles are happening in my life. Why? He says, because they have responded more to his love, and hence they, on one level, deserve more or receive more, get a greater flow of it. Others have shut themselves by doubt, confusion, unwillingness, indifference, ignorance. So this is available for everyone. This is the whole Leela that is happening all the time. Okay? Okay, final goodbyes. Jai Guru, Jai Guru.